righty, guys. Welcome back to the Trading Room with Simon Ree. I am your host, Hisham, and without further ado, let's get started. Simon, every week I speak to people who really want to get started into option trading, but just haven't pulled the trigger yet. And the number one reason I always hear is I don't have time. You've been doing this for 30 years. Tell me, is this a valid reason?
It's the wrong framing entirely. You're correct. Most people will ask, how much time do I need? They're worried that they don't have time. But in their minds, they're picturing the Hollywood version of trading. Six monitors, mainlining coffee from 7 a.m. till market close, tickers flying everywhere. That's a film set, not a trading desk. And look, the best traders that I worked alongside at Goldman and at Citi, they weren't the busiest, they were the most prepared. All right, it's a completely different thing. That old Abraham Lincoln quote, you give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'll spend the first four sharpening the axe. That's a good mindset to take into trading. It's all about the preparation and not staring at screens all day. More time in the market doesn't equate to better results. People always confuse activity with progress. They do this in real life as well as in trading. But this idea that you've got to be in front of your screens all day, working harder, hustling harder, it's a myth that retail traders inherit, and it usually ends up costing them a lot of money.
So this whole being glued behind a screen and watching the screen all day is sounds like it's actually working against people.
In the majority of cases, it is. Most of the trading day is noise. All right, the first 30 minutes after the open are frenetic and emotional. You've got retail traders panic buying, they're panic selling, they're reacting to whatever Jim Cramer just said, they're reacting to the latest news headline. Middle of the day tends to be low volume, choppy, there's kind of not much worth doing. The last hour, you can see some real action, but if you've been watching the markets all day, you're mentally cooked by then anyway. The worst decisions of a trader's day come from too much screen time, not too little. All right. There are no participation trophies in the market. The market doesn't care how many hours you've logged. It only rewards you if you had a plan and whether you followed it.
Mm, got it. And so with that, when does the real work actually start?
When the market's closed. All right. So think
Mm.
of it like a chef, all right? You wouldn't hire a chef who spends 8 hours wandering around the kitchen, opening and closing the fridge, opening and closing cupboard doors. You'd hire the one who preps everything in advance, executes cleanly, and then gets out. Trading is exactly the same, all right? Once the market opens, all you're doing is following a recipe, all right? The real work has already happened.
Gotcha. So walk me through this recipe. Give me the sauce.
All right,
What
let's
is
go.
actually going on in during that time?
So I like to kind of put my trading inside a container, and I have like a 30-minute container. It's usually 20 to 30 minutes. First thing I do is I open up our Tower dashboard and scanner and I run some scans. Now, what the scanner does is it filters the entire universe of US listed stocks down to a few names based on specific technical criteria. We're looking for price action patterns, trend behavior, momentum. That step takes about 2 minutes. All right. It takes less time than it takes me to finish a cup of coffee. Now, from that short list, I'm looking for setups that are genuinely clean. All right. Three things have to line up. The stock needs to be at a meaningful technical level. Trend and momentum need to be working in my favor. And the potential reward has got to be bigger, at least twice the size of the potential risk. If any of those are missing, then I'll pass on the setup. And if I've got to, squint at the chart to talk myself into it, the market's telling me to move on. Some days I might find one, two, three setups. Some days I find none. And when I find none, I do nothing.
Wait, so you just do nothing?
Exactly. Cash is a legitimate position, and sometimes it's the best position. What you don't own can't hurt you in trading. Doing nothing when there's nothing to do is a very hard skill to develop in trading, but it'll save your account, right? Your portfolio will love you for it. Because most people can't sit on their hands. They force a trade just to justify the time spent. They're like, oh man, I spent the last 20 minutes looking at charts and analyzing trades. It's going to be a waste of time if I don't do something. And so they force a trade, and that forced trade invariably becomes a loss almost every time.
Right, right. Okay, so you've got your short list. Uh, then what's next?
So I plan all of my entries in advance. So for each setup that I like, that kind of passes the shortlist test, I decide exactly where I want to get in, and I'll set a limit order at that price so that I'm not chasing at the open. If the market comes to my price, that's great. If it doesn't, I let the trade go, and that's completely fine. There's always another setup. All right. Trading setups are like buses on a busy street. You might miss that one, but there's another bus coming around the corner. Maybe you can't see it yet, but there's always another bus coming around the corner. There's always another great trading setup just days away. Chasing a move destroys your reward to risk, and your reward to risk is so important to your overall profitability. All right. So once I've defined my entry, I define my risk. And that is actually the most important step of the whole routine, the defining of the risk.
And tell me why is defining the risk so much more important than finding the right entry?
Because the upside that we're after is just an educated guess. The downside is the only thing that we've actually got control over. Now, every trade that I go into has got what I call a point of invalidity. This is a level that I identify that tells me when price is telling me my thesis is wrong. Now, you must know your point of invalidity before you enter a trade. And if price crosses it, you get out. All right. There's no wishing, there's no hoping, there's no crossing your fingers. There's no, I just know it's going to come back this time. And position sizing flows directly from that number. All right. So if your point of invalidity is further away, trade smaller. That way, the dollar risk stays consistent across every single trade. Some people will say, well, shouldn't I put more in this trade because it looks better? Shouldn't I have higher conviction on this setup? I often joke that conviction is for criminals. If I say I'm going to put more money in this trade than this trade, that implies I know how the future is going to unfold, and I don't. All right. I'm only ever playing probabilities. I'm never playing certainties. So I keep the dollar risk the same across all of my setups. If a trade starts moving in my favor, I may at that point start adding to it, but not until it's proven itself to me. So that is seriously what keeps you in the game long enough for the edge to compound, that very critical risk definition. So once the orders are in, the points of invalidity have been noted, I go to bed.
Nice. So you're literally in bed while the U.S. market is open.
Yeah, look, I live in Singapore, right? So the US market opens at 9:30 p.m. my time. So I do my preparation when the market's closed, place my orders, and yeah, then I literally go to bed. I'm asleep while the market's doing whatever it will do. Now, there are people out there who will sit there glued to the screen watching the market after they've placed their orders. Now, sitting there watching the market isn't going to change what the market does, right? The market is going to do what the market is going to do, whether you're staring at it or not. Staring at it will not improve your results. Me staring at the market, it's not going to change a thing. What it will do is cost me some sleep. And the other thing that it'll do is it'll probably tempt me into doing some fiddling with my positions, which is almost guaranteed to lead to a suboptimal outcome, right? Because that fiddling isn't part of the plan. So the next day, I'll check my positions the next morning over coffee. I'll note anything that needs adjusting, and then I get on with my day. All right, that's the whole routine in a nutshell.
Wow, this all sounds surprisingly pretty straightforward, and but I'm sure I'm not the only one thinking this. What's the catch, Simon?
It is straightforward, but the catch is simple and easy are two very different things. The process, you're right, it's very straightforward, it's very simple. Following it, that is the hard part. Because following it means sitting on your hands when there's nothing worth doing, even when every fiber of your being says, I should be doing something. It means not chasing a stock, even where you had the right idea and the stock is moving in the direction that you expected. All right. But you're not going to chase it because it ruins your reward to risk. It can be very hard to sit out of a move that you predicted and is happening without you. It also means accepting that you'll be wrong 40% of the time and being genuinely okay with that.
Wow. And, you know, what's interesting is I speak to a lot of traders, and more often than not, they really equate losing with failure. So how do you make peace with being wrong 40% of the time?
Because the math doesn't care about my feelings, right? The math doesn't care about my peace. And what you got to remember is a 60% win rate with a 2-to-1 reward to risk ratio is a highly profitable system. You can make a great living trading a system with those sorts of results. Now, my average winner is about 2 times the size of my average loser. All right. That's where the real edge comes in, not the win rate, but the expectancy of the whole system. Now, most trading educators they sell the idea of very high win rates because it sounds reassuring. It's easy to market. People who haven't traded before feel comforted by the idea of, oh yeah, let's find trades that have a 90% win rate, and we'll just print money with minimal stress. It is seductive, but it's also toxic for almost everyone who follows it because chasing very high win rates forces you into ugly reward to risk setups from the start. So, yeah, I'm wrong 40% of the time, but the wins are that much bigger than the losers. And that's the whole game. I know I'm not going to be right all of the time, but I make a lot of money when I am right, and I only lose a small amount of money when I'm wrong. That's the game.
Excellent. And with that, what are some actual mistakes that you see most often from people who are trying to trade around a full-time job?
Yeah, great question because trading shouldn't be a full-time job for most people. But the big mistakes that I see are almost always psychological, not technical. All right. Is someone with a full-time job, they get suckered into checking their positions constantly during the day, whether it's on their phone or on their laptop. And what happens then is they see a red number, they panic, they get that surge of negative emotion, and they close the trade well before the trade has even been invalidated. And then the stock recovers and they miss the entire move. All right. And then they start beating themselves up over not following their plan. Or they trade too many positions at once. Again, they're confusing activity with progress. They think that more
Mm,
positions means more profit. It doesn't. All right. More positions just means more noise and more emotional whiplash for most people. The other common mistake is traders will force a trade on a slow day because sitting on their hands feels lazy. So they manufacture reasons to get in. And that forced trade is almost always going to be a loss. And then the classic is revenge trading, right? They take a loss on a trade and it stings. Their ego doesn't like it. And so they immediately take another trade to, make it back. And that second trade wasn't in the plan. It was an emotional reaction. And emotional reactions in markets tend to have expensive consequences.
interesting. So, sounds like really having a process is almost like armor against your own psychology.
Yeah, Hisham, that's actually a really good way of putting it. Um, Having a process is a way of protecting you from yourself. When you know exactly what you're doing and why, when every trade is a setup, not an opinion, a losing trade is just data, right? It's not a referendum on your intelligence. It's not a signal of how good of a trader you are. It is just data. Now, the traders that I've seen do well over decades, their processes are almost embarrassingly simple. Clean price action, a few key levels, define risk, and a plan that they follow without any drama. They're not the most talented people in the room. They're not the most intelligent, but they are the most disciplined. And there's a Bruce Lee quote that I like very much as it applies to trading. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, add what is uniquely your own. Now, most retail traders are only ever doing the first part. They absorb, they absorb, they absorb. They absorb everything, every indicator, every guru's opinion, every free strategy they find online, every news headline, but they never discard. And they keep adding layers of complexity until the system is so bloated they just can't execute cleanly anymore. And complexity is almost always a confidence problem in disguise.
Yes, wonderfully said, Simon. And something that you said something earlier definitely resonated to somebody like myself when, they hear option trading, they immediately think of that person behind the screens and all kinds of charts and things like that. So my question is, who is this actually for? Do you need to have experience? Do you need to have that finance background and serious capital?
No, no, you don't. You need a process, and that's genuinely it. Now, in our programs, we do have people from the industry. We've got ex-colleagues of mine from Goldman. We've got ex-hedge fund guys. We've also got school teachers, yoga teachers, accountants, entrepreneurs, engineers. We've got people in their 20s. We've got people in their 70s. We've got people from all walks of life making it work, trading successfully. And the thing that defines their success is a process that they follow without drama. That's genuinely it. So you don't need a finance degree. You definitely don't need a Bloomberg terminal and 6 monitors. You don't need the ability to function on 4 hours of sleep. You need a simple, repeatable process that anyone can learn and the discipline to follow it. I've taught thousands of people around the world, whether they're beginners, busy professionals, fitting trading in around their real life, or people who've been grinding charts for years and just not making progress. The process is the same for all of them. The psychology is the same, and the obstacles are typically the same as well. As I said earlier, trading doesn't have to be a second full-time job, and for most people, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be if it's done well. All right. It should just be
Right.
something that fits into your real life when you got a process that you can follow with discipline.
Right. And for the people who actually want to see you do this live every week, please let our audience know where they can go.
Tao Weekly. So every Monday, I record a free weekly video where I walk through current market conditions, the setups I'm watching, how I'm thinking about risk. You can also follow me on Substack, where post my videos on Substack, but most days I'll post some market notes as well, what I'm seeing on the markets, how I'm interpreting the macro situation. You join along on the weekly videos and the Substack, and you'll probably find the penny starts dropping pretty quickly.
Just brilliant, Simon. Just brilliant. Um, well, we've covered quite the ground today. We've covered your routine, most importantly. And one thing next week, guys, stay tuned. We're going to go over a lot deeper on this part. Simon said, very importantly, defining risk and position sizing. That's going to be very important. If you've ever been in a trade that went wrong and you weren't sure whether to hold or fold, that is exactly what we're going to be covering next week when we unpack this with Simon. So thank you so much for your time, as always, Simon, and thank everybody.
Thanks, Hisham. This was fun and really looking forward to next week. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.